When the heart learns to see beyond fear, it discovers that home is not a place but a choice. Sometimes we must lose ourselves to find who we were meant to become. The wagon wheels creaked against the rocky terrain as Catherine O'Connor adjusted her black morning dress, dust settling on her leather satchel filled with Patrick's letters and her precious books. The Philadelphia schoolteacher gazed across the endless New Mexico territory, wondering if this journey would truly help heal her widowed heart. "Mrs. O'Connor, we'll reach Santa Fe by sunset," called Wagon Master Jenkins. Suddenly, war cries pierced the air. Navajo warriors emerged from the canyon walls like ghosts, their painted faces fierce in the afternoon sun. Chaos erupted as arrows whistled through the air and horses reared in terror. Catherine clutched her satchel tighter, watching families scatter in panic. A tall warrior with silver armbands rode toward her, his dark eyes calculating. "Please," she whispered, but he dismounted swiftly. Other warriors shouted for her blood, their voices filled with rage against all white settlers. The leader raised his hand, speaking in commanding Navajo. "Yóshkai," he said, pointing to himself. His weathered face showed neither cruelty nor mercy, only the hard wisdom of survival. "You come," Yóshkai said in broken English, gesturing toward the canyon. Catherine's hands trembled as she looked back at the scattered wagon train, smoke rising from overturned supplies. "My books, my husband's letters," she pleaded, gripping the satchel. The chief studied her for a long moment, then nodded curtly. Several warriors protested angrily in their native tongue, but Yóshkai's word was final. He helped her onto his horse, and they rode toward towering red cliffs that seemed to touch the sky, leaving her old life behind in the dust. The canyon walls closed around them like a natural cathedral, shadows dancing in the fading light. Catherine had never seen such beauty or felt such terror. Yóshkai spoke quietly, his words strange but oddly comforting. "Now is not time for talk. Now is time to learn to live." The Navajo village appeared ahead, hogans nestled against the canyon walls like ancient dwellings. Women emerged to stare at the white woman, children peering from behind their mothers' colorful skirts. Catherine hugged her satchel closer, realizing her education and Eastern refinement meant nothing here. Dawn brought harsh reality to Catherine's new life. Navajo women thrust grinding stones into her soft hands, gesturing impatiently at corn kernels. Her back ached as she knelt, trying to mimic their rhythmic motions. "Like this," said a young girl named Aina in halting English, showing kindness where others showed only duty. The cornmeal scattered uselessly as Catherine's blistered palms struggled with the unfamiliar task. Sweat dripped onto her torn dress as the desert sun climbed higher. "Water," commanded Astsan, the weathered medicine woman, pointing toward the distant river. Catherine lifted the heavy clay jars, her arms trembling under the weight. The rocky path cut through her thin shoes, each step a reminder of her helplessness. Gashake, a suspicious warrior, watched her stumble and muttered something harsh in Navajo. Aina translated quietly. "He says white women are weak like winter grass." Catherine straightened her spine, determined to prove him wrong despite her aching muscles. Buffalo hides stretched before Catherine like mountain ranges to conquer. Astsan demonstrated the scraping technique with quick, efficient strokes while Catherine fumbled with the crude tools. "You learn or you die," the old woman said bluntly, her English surprisingly clear. Blood seeped from Catherine's torn knuckles, but she continued working. The other women glanced at her with grudging respect as calluses slowly formed on her once gentle hands. Her morning dress grew stained with sweat and earth. That night, Catherine secretly opened her precious book by flickering firelight, hidden in her assigned corner of the hogan. She began writing. "Day 7 among the Navajo. My hands bleed, my back screams, but I am learning their ways." The leather binding felt like an old friend in this strange world. Outside, coyotes howled their lonesome songs while she planned her escape, sketching the canyon paths she'd observed during her water-carrying duties. The full moon celebration filled the canyon with drumbeats and chanting voices. Catherine watched from the shadows as warriors danced around the sacred fire, their painted bodies moving in ancient rhythms. This was her chance. She slipped away quietly, clutching her satchel and following the path she'd memorized during water runs. The silver moonlight made the canyon walls glow like ghostly guardians. Her heart pounded as she navigated the twisting passages, freedom calling from beyond the rocky maze. Hours passed as Catherine stumbled through identical-looking canyons, her confidence crumbling with each wrong turn. The paths she'd thought she knew became foreign in darkness. Rain began falling, turning dust to treacherous mud. Lightning illuminated the canyon walls, revealing she stood at a cliff's edge with nowhere to go. Her feet slipped on wet stone as thunder crashed overhead. Below lay a deadly drop into black emptiness. She was completely lost and utterly trapped. "Foolish woman," Yóshkai's voice cut through the storm as he appeared on horseback, rain streaming from his braided hair. Catherine pressed against the canyon wall, trembling from cold and fear. Instead of anger, his dark eyes showed something like understanding. "You wish to die rather than live with us?" he asked, dismounting carefully on the slippery ledge. "I offer bargain. 4 months you learn Navajo ways. Then I take you to Soldier Fort myself." His words hung between them like a lifeline. Catherine stared at the chief, rain washing away her tears of frustration. "Why would you help me?" she whispered. Yóshkai gazed into the stormy night before answering. "My grandmother was white woman, captured like you. She chose to stay, became mother to my people." His voice carried old pain and pride. "You have her stubborn spirit. 4 months, you learn our ways truly. Then choose your path freely." Catherine nodded slowly, understanding this was her only real chance for survival and eventual freedom. Astsan's weathered hands moved gracefully among the desert plants, selecting healing herbs with practiced wisdom. "This sage cleanses bad spirits," she explained, crushing aromatic leaves between her fingers. Catherine knelt beside her, absorbing every word about sacred ceremonies and ancient traditions. The medicine woman's stern demeanor softened as she shared knowledge passed down through generations. "White woman who listens learns much," Astsan said approvingly. Catherine's notebook filled with sketches and observations about medicinal plants. Yóshkai led Catherine through winding canyon paths, teaching her to read signs invisible to untrained eyes. "See broken twig? Deer passed here at dawn," he said, pointing to subtle disturbances in the earth. His patient instruction revealed the desert's hidden language of survival. Catherine's respect for his wisdom grew daily as she learned to navigate by stars and find water sources. "You have quick mind," he acknowledged, watching her identify animal tracks. Their mutual understanding deepened beyond mere teacher and student. Evening firelight danced across eager young faces as Catherine opened her precious book of stories. Speaking in halting Navajo mixed with English, she told tales of distant lands to fascinated children. Ina translated when words failed, bridging the gap between cultures. The children's laughter warmed Catherine's heart, reminding her of her teaching days in Philadelphia. Even stern adults gathered to listen, drawn by her animated storytelling. These moments of connection made her captivity feel less like imprisonment. Yóshkai's hostile stare followed Catherine wherever she went, his distrust evident in every scowl. "She changes our chief," he muttered to other warriors in Navajo, unaware Catherine now understood their language better. His warnings about the white woman's growing influence on Yóshkai carried undertones of jealousy and fear. Catherine sensed the danger brewing in his resentment, knowing that her position in the tribe remained precarious despite her progress. The warrior's opposition could threaten everything she'd worked to achieve. Gunfire shattered the peaceful morning as bandits rode into the canyon, their faces masked and weapons gleaming. "Gold! We know you trade with miners," their leader shouted in broken Spanish. Women screamed, gathering children as warriors reached for bows and rifles. Catherine saw 5 terrified Navajo children huddled near the water jars, abandoned in the chaos. Without hesitation, she ran toward them instead of seeking her own safety. "Come with me," she called, scooping up little Cheesy while urging the others to follow. Catherine led the frightened children up a treacherous rocky slope toward a hidden cave she'd discovered during her canyon explorations. "Stay quiet, like mice," she whispered in Navajo, her heart pounding as bullets ricocheted off stone walls below. The children pressed against her, trembling with fear as gunshots echoed through the canyon. She held them close, singing soft lullabies her mother had taught her long ago in Philadelphia. Through the cave entrance, smoke rose from burning hogans while the battle raged. Hours passed before silence finally returned to the canyon. Catherine emerged cautiously with the children, scanning for danger. The bandits had fled, leaving destruction in their wake. Yóshkai appeared below, his face streaked with dust and worry. When he spotted Catherine descending with the 5 children safe in her care, his expression transformed from relief to amazement. Warriors and women gathered around, their voices filled with gratitude and respect. Little Cheesy clung to Catherine's hand, refusing to let go. "You chose our children over your freedom," Yóshkai said quietly that evening, his eyes reflecting firelight and newfound respect. The entire tribe had witnessed Catherine's courage, and their attitude toward her shifted dramatically. Women who had barely tolerated her presence now smiled warmly. Warriors nodded approvingly as she passed. Astson placed weathered hands on Catherine's shoulders. "Now you are truly one of us," the medicine woman declared. Catherine felt something deep within her heart change, realizing home wasn't always where you were born. Major Davis rode into the canyon under a white flag, his blue uniform pristine despite the dusty journey. "I come seeking peace between our peoples," he announced with practiced sincerity. Catherine watched from beside Yóshkai as the officer smiled too broadly, his words flowing like honey. Something felt wrong about his demeanor. Too eager, too rehearsed. During her Philadelphia teaching days, she'd learned to recognize dishonesty in students' faces. The major's eyes held the same shifty quality as children spinning lies. That night, Catherine overheard whispered English voices near the horses. Creeping closer, she recognized Major Davis speaking urgently with Yóshkai. "The explosion will kill both their leaders and ours," Davis hissed. "Then we'll have our war, and my associates will profit handsomely from weapons sales." Yóshkai nodded grimly. The white woman must not interfere again. Catherine's blood ran cold as she realized the conspiracy's deadly scope. These men planned to sacrifice innocent lives for personal gain. Catherine hurried toward Yóshkai's hogan, her mind racing with urgency. Before she could warn him, rough hands seized her from behind. "Quiet, schoolmarm," Davis snarled, pressing a cloth over her mouth. Yóshkai bound her hands while the major explained their plan. "Tomorrow's peace meeting will end in tragedy. You've become too troublesome, helping these savages." They dragged her toward a storage cave, intending to silence the only witness to their treachery. Catherine struggled desperately, knowing lives depended on her escape. Using skills learned from months of canyon living, Catherine worked her bonds against sharp rocks until the ropes frayed. She slipped from the cave as dawn approached, racing toward the meeting site where Yóshkai and tribal elders gathered with army officers. "Stop!" she screamed, pointing to hidden explosive charges Yóshkai had planted. "It's a trap!" The blast meant to kill everyone detonated harmlessly as people scattered. Davis and Yóshkai tried to flee, but were quickly surrounded by outraged warriors and honest soldiers alike. Colonel Weston arrived 3 days later, his weathered face bearing the integrity Major Davis had lacked. "I apologize for my subordinate's treachery," he said solemnly to Yóshkai. "The army desires genuine peace, not bloodshed born of greed." Catherine found herself translating between the two leaders, her fluency in both languages making her invaluable. The colonel's respectful demeanor and honest words gradually earned the trust of tribal elders who had witnessed too many broken promises from white officials. "Mrs. O'Connor speaks for both our peoples," Colonel Weston observed as Catherine helped negotiate treaty terms. Her unique position allowed her to explain Navajo concerns about sacred canyon sites while conveying military needs for safe passage routes. The resulting agreement protected tribal lands while permitting limited, supervised trade. "This is remarkable," the colonel admitted privately. "You've achieved what diplomats failed to accomplish." Catherine felt pride in bridging two worlds that had known only conflict for generations. As the 4-month agreement neared its end, a familiar figure appeared at the canyon entrance. "Catherine," called her cousin Sean O'Malley, dismounting from a dust-covered horse, "I've come to take you home to Philadelphia." His kind eyes held relief and worry as he embraced her. "The family's been frantic since news of the wagon train attack reached us." Catherine looked at Sean, then at the canyon walls that had become her refuge, feeling torn between two definitions of home. That evening, Catherine sat with Yóshkai overlooking the canyon as stars emerged. "Your people call you back to your old life," he said quietly. She studied his noble profile, remembering the terrified woman who had arrived months ago. "I was a different person then," she whispered. "Here, I found purpose beyond anything I knew in Philadelphia." Yóshkai turned to her, hope flickering in his dark eyes. "Then stay. Become truly one of us." The decision that would define her future hung between them like destiny itself. "I'm staying," Catherine told Sean the next morning, her voice steady despite his shocked expression. "This is my home now." Her cousin's face crumpled with disappointment. "The family will never understand," he said sadly. "They'll think you've gone mad from trauma." Catherine embraced him warmly. "Tell them I've found my true calling. I'm needed here." As Sean rode away, Catherine felt both grief and relief. She had chosen her path, and there was no turning back to her old life. The sacred adoption ceremony took place under a full moon, with the entire tribe gathered in the canyon's heart. Astsan painted traditional symbols on Catherine's face while chanting ancient blessings. "From this day, you are Begochidi, she who brings the dawn," Yóshkai announced. Catherine knelt as tribal elders placed ceremonial jewelry around her neck, officially welcoming her as a daughter of the people. Tears streamed down her face as she felt the weight of belonging settle into her soul like coming home. The wedding ceremony blended Navajo traditions with respect for Catherine's heritage. She wore both a traditional woven dress and her grandmother's pearl necklace, symbolizing the union of two worlds. Yóshkai spoke vows in Navajo, while Catherine responded in English, their words translated for all to understand. "Two hearts, one spirit," Astsan declared, binding their hands with sacred cord. As they exchanged rings, Catherine knew she had found not just love, but her destiny among these canyon walls. A year later, Catherine cradled her newborn son, Patrick Bizod, his name honoring both her late husband's memory and his Navajo heritage. The baby's arrival symbolized hope for harmony between cultures. Catherine established a small school, teaching Navajo children to read and write while preserving their traditional stories. Her role expanded beyond wife and mother. She became a bridge between worlds, helping other captives adapt and facilitating peaceful interactions with settlers. Her transformation was complete, yet her journey was just beginning. Catherine meticulously recorded Astsan's healing knowledge in her expanding journals, documenting every herb, ritual, and sacred practice. "Future generations must not lose this wisdom," she explained to the aging medicine woman. Her careful illustrations showed medicinal plants alongside detailed instructions for their preparation. Tribal elders appreciated her dedication to preserving their heritage in written form. "You honor our ancestors," Astsan said approvingly, watching Catherine sketch complex ceremonial patterns that had never before been documented. Years passed as Catherine skillfully balanced her roles as wife, mother, cultural keeper, and government liaison. Her children grew fluent in both languages, equally comfortable with Navajo traditions and Eastern knowledge. When smallpox threatened the reservation, Catherine combined traditional remedies with medical techniques learned in Philadelphia, helping save countless lives. Her reputation spread beyond the canyon, attracting scholars and reformers who sought her insights into successful cultural integration between indigenous peoples and settlers. "Mama, tell us about the old days," her daughter, Sarah Astza, asked one evening, settling beside the fire with her younger brothers. Catherine smiled, beginning the familiar tale of her capture and transformation. Her children listened with fascination to stories of their parents' first meeting and their mother's journey from frightened captive to respected tribal member. These family moments reinforced the importance of understanding both worlds they inhabited, preparing them for their own roles as cultural bridges. A delegation of Eastern missionaries arrived seeking Catherine's advice on peaceful conversion methods. "Force breeds only resentment," she counseled firmly. "Respect and understanding open hearts where commands close them." Her measured words carried the authority of experience, guiding visitors toward approaches that honored rather than destroyed native traditions. Catherine's influence extended far beyond the canyon walls, as her methods became models for successful cross-cultural cooperation throughout the expanding frontier territories. Silver streaked Catherine's hair as she sat watching her grandchildren play in the canyon where she had once stumbled as a terrified captive. Patrick Bizud now served as a respected liaison between the reservation and the territorial government, while her daughter Sarah Astza had become a gifted healer combining both traditions. "Grandmother, tell us about the old world," young Thomas Haston asked, settling beside her weathered hands. Catherine smiled, remembering the frightened Philadelphia widow who had arrived decades ago, transformed by courage and compassion into something greater. Catherine's final manuscript neared completion, a comprehensive record of Navajo healing practices, ceremonies, and oral traditions. Museum curators from back east had already requested copies, recognizing the historical treasure she had created. "This knowledge belongs to your people first," she told the tribal council, presenting bound volumes written in both English and Navajo. Her life's work would ensure that future generations could access their ancestors' wisdom, even as the modern world encroached upon traditional ways. When Yóshkai passed peacefully in his sleep, Catherine grieved deeply, but chose to remain in the canyon rather than join relatives in distant cities. The tribal elders honored her decision, recognizing her irreplaceable role as keeper of traditions and bridge between worlds. "You are our memory," they told her, "our link to both past and future." At 80, Catherine had lived longer among the Navajo than in her birth culture, her identity completely woven into the fabric of tribal life. Catherine's final journal entry reflected on her extraordinary journey. "I came as Catherine O'Connor, schoolteacher and widow. I became Begochidi, she who brings the dawn. In losing my old life, I found my true purpose." Her story entered Navajo oral tradition as a testament to transformation through courage and respect. Museums preserved her writings as proof that understanding between peoples was possible. Her legacy lived on in descendants who carried both heritages with pride, bringing light to dark times through wisdom and compassion.